Beautiful A plus setup towards the downside. Welcome back to another trade recap. Today is February the 3rd. Absolutely beautiful day in the markets. Overall markets dropping right off the bat within the first 5 minutes of market open. We'll go over all the trades and everything, the full game plan, executions, and what we're thinking about coming into market open. And then, of course, we're going to go on to the executions and the trades that I took coming into today. Let's go right into the charts. Let's first take a look at our trade Zella statistics for the month so far. As you can see, I took two trades today. Both were actually on Nvidia. We'll kind of talk about the thought process with the new strike prices as well, since I have been testing out which are the best strike prices to trade, the best expirations, since we do have multiple expirations on the Meg 7. We'll touch up on that today here as well. But that put me up about $25,000 for the week so far. And what are the trades I ended up taking today? The trades I ended up taking today were on Nvidia. So Nvidia towards the downside, 5-minute opening range retest along with our 1-minute order block. Absolutely fantastic trade towards the downside. We'll kind of talk about the overall thought process, but Nvidia has been a little bit weaker compared to the overall market, has been the weakest semiconductor, of course. And these are, of course, my P&L and my executions here. So I actually ended up taking two strike prices today. Sorry, two different expirations, same strike price. But I kind of want to touch up on, what are we going to be trading moving forward? So I ended up taking the first trade, end up scaling 50% onto the downside, and then up holding remaining trailers. And I also took the 180 strike for the February 4th calls. This one end up moving super solid, $1 contract to almost 260. And of course, now it's continuing lower here as well. So what is the overall thought process? And then we'll kind of go on to the expirations here in a second. So the overall game plan here on Nvidia coming into market open was that it was showing a little bit more weakness. You can see yesterday, a little bit of a drop in the after hours, of course. Key level for me coming to market open was that 186. If we can break underneath that 186, potentially we can see some continuation lower towards the downside underneath our 186 for a push down in towards that after hours lows. If we can reclaim back above, potentially you can see that mean reversion. So coming into market open, I actually had a more neutral / bullish stance. But you can see within the first 5 minutes, we end up pushing lower. Kind of similar to yesterday. Yesterday, I had a neutral / bearish stance. First 5 minutes told me the story. Same thing today. First 5 minutes, breaking underneath our previous day highs. As I mentioned, if it breaks underneath our previous day highs, we can see continuation lower. SPY, similar thesis. If we break underneath, then we could be looking for this continuation lower down and towards your 694. So if we play out that first 5-minute candle, you can see first 5-minute drop towards the downside. Now we're more neutral, but leaning more towards the downside just because now we're underneath our previous day highs. If we wanted to see some continuation, it would have been above our previous day highs. What are the names that are showing the most weakness? Nvidia. We had Nvidia underneath our key levels, which is that 186. Other names that I like for some downside, of course, was Microsoft underneath that 420s for continuation lower here as well. But Nvidia, as you can see, within the first 5 minutes of market open, super solid push towards the downside. Now we're looking for either the retest off of our previous day lows, which will be that 184 for really this continued push towards the downside, or of course that 186. So we keep playing at the tape. Nvidia kept on dropping lower. So now, most likely we're going to have to use what's called our 5-minute range. If you go into the 5-minute chart, we can mark out that 5-minute range. Plus, if we go back onto the 1-minute time frame, we can mark out that up close candle, which is our order block. So in this case, can price come all the way back up and towards that previous day lows? Yes, it can, but just based off of the weakness here on the QQQ, the Qs also had our 5-minute range retest here as well. So really what I like to see is Qs reject off 5-minute range, continue lower. Nvidia reject off 5-minute range low, continue lower towards the downside, plus this up close candle. So as price is pushing higher, you can see right here. We'll go into the live session here in a second, but price ends up pushing higher, rejects off our 5-minute range low, plus this up close candle here as well. I get in on this candle flip. As it's showing weakness, this is where I go short. My main targets, of course, all the way back down and towards that 170.50, which is, of course, very far away. But for me, key levels that I have marked out was this low of day level, right? Sorry, this after hours low. So within the first, really as soon as it got in, the very next minute, hit one of my main objectives. You can see the QQQ huge flush as well. The contracts, if you're choosing the Friday's expirations, only went down, only went up about 20%. If you're choosing the Wednesday's expirations, these went up like 30-40% on the 180 strike. So right off the bat, we had a super solid push towards the downside, and I already scaled 50% of my positions. I was trading the 180 strikes on Friday's expirations. So I ended up scaling 50%, and then price came back up. And then at this time, right, I still like the setup, right? You can see the Qs maintaining weakness, Nvidia is still holding underneath, right? Then I was looking at actually the 180 strike prices on Wednesday's expirations. And you can see the difference in how they move. So what I kind of want to talk about here is, if you don't already know, now we have multiple expirations. We have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on all the Mag 7 names, right? Tesla, Nvidia, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon. These are the Mag 7s. So those are the ones that have Monday and Wednesday expirations now. So my game plan moving forward is primarily to trade names, to trade the expirations that have, of course, the most volume. So if I'm trading 0 days, I'm most likely going to go to the next strike price. So let's say, for example, we're trading, today is a Tuesday. So before, all we were doing is trading the Friday's expirations, right? Just because that's the only thing that offered. That's the only thing we could possibly trade. Now we can trade Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday's expirations. So if we're trading on a Monday, I'm most likely going to choose either the Wednesdays or the Fridays expirations, because I don't want to trade 0 day contracts. 0 day contracts, very hard to trade. It's based off the premiums. You're battling against time. Yes, you can make more money. You can lose a lot more money. So if I'm playing on Monday, I'm probably going to end up choosing the Wednesdays or the Fridays from now on. If I'm on a Tuesday, I'm going to most likely trade the Wednesdays or the Fridays. Similar thing. If I'm trading on a Wednesday, then of course I'm going to choose the Fridays. And then Thursday, I'm going to choose the Fridays. And then of course on a Friday, right now we can either choose next week's on Monday, or if we really want to, we can still trade those 0 days on Fridays, just because there's still going to be nice volume. So that's kind of the game plan moving forward in terms of trading, in terms of choosing the expiration. As for the strike price, of course, it's always going to be one out the money or one with most volume. In this case, I ended up choosing the 180 strike price, which was fairly far away, but that's why the contracts, as you can see, paid very nicely. As you can see, these are the 180 puts here. They ended up essentially going from $1 to almost $2.60 a contract. Still rejected off our key area. Nice flush towards the downside. Every single up close candle held. And then we end up moving all the way down in towards that 180 psychological level, which was also that 180 strike price as well. So the contracts paid very, very nicely today on Nvidia. That was a move towards the downside. I'm not exactly sure if it ended up continuing lower. I ended up cutting the remaining, but Nvidia, super solid push towards the downside. Qs end up pushing down right in towards our key level, which of course was that previous day low. So yesterday we went from previous day low to previous day high. Today we went from previous day high all the way back down towards previous day low. So we're kind of trading in this nice range here. Lots of volatility, which was absolutely fantastic. Now let's go on to the live session that we had for today to go over the overall thought process. Get started. So as you can see, Qs, I was kind of explaining it here. I was fairly neutral, actually leaning a little bit more towards the upside during market open. As the Qs was dropping, as you can see right off the bat, I was actually leaning a little bit more bearish now. I was keeping an eye on a couple names, but really no relative strength on anything. And then Nvidia, I was keeping an eye on, of course, off that previous day low retest. But as you can see, kept on showing a little bit more weakness. But now you can see in QQQ 5-minute range retest, Nvidia's coming back up. So I'm keeping an eye out on this 5-minute range plus this 1-minute down close candle here as well. As Qs was dropping, Nvidia, let's kind of speed up the tape here. But yeah, Nvidia is showing a little bit of weakness off our key levels. That's exactly where I went in short, as the keys kept on dropping here as well. And then within the very next candle, you can see we actually end up having a nice flip. You can see the very next candle. Look at this big drop. I'm not sure if this had to do with news at this time, but looking back, Q's perfect drop down in towards that 623. And then Nvidia, nice pop right down in towards our after hours lows. You can see this drop right here on the Qs. Premiums move super solid. Maybe if you trade the Qs 5-minute range low retest, Nvidia scaled down my first 50% down in towards this key level. And then it just maintained market structure. You can see a little bit of pop here, but every pop was being sold. Qs end up holding our key levels here as well. But Nvidia ultimately stayed heavy, and then the Qs broke underneath. So it was just weak all day. And then the last key level here on the Qs, 619. And then you can see this beautiful drop here on Nvidia. Just every single pop was being shorted, very weak on the tape today. And we just end up trailing it really all the way down in towards 619 here. Previous day lows on the Qs, and of course Nvidia, really this 180.50, which ended up being super solid for the day. And then basically I hit my main objective, which was that 180. At this point, I was on majority of my position with the Qs already being at your previous day low. So yeah, that was an absolutely beautiful way to really start off the week here and start off the month. Absolutely fantastic. Couple green trades, really solid executions here as well. Super solid price action. We'll see what shapes up, of course, with AMD earnings tonight, which I'm super excited about. But besides that, I'll see you guys all tomorrow. All right, take care, everyone. Peace.